Hello and welcome back to another routergods video. My name's Humphrey. We're going to talk about the top 3 things you should learn when you start a new sales engineer job, and also the top mistake that I see new sales engineers do. So the top 3 things, and in order to study them, are people, the 3 Ps: people, process, products. People, process, products. Notice I put the products last because that's the main mistake most people do. So generally, sales engineers come from network engineers. Kind of makes sense. And as a network engineer, you always want to study your routers and your switches and your Wi-Fi and how to configure everything. So the tendency for new sales engineers to just dive deep into the product and ignore the people, ignore the process, and you really want to study the product, and you spend most of your hours in the early weeks and in the first couple months. I think that's actually a big mistake. Yes, you should learn the product, but that's going to come later. There's plenty of time to learn the product later, and I'm not telling you to ignore the product, but what I'm saying is set your priorities straight. Okay, people, process, products. What do I mean about studying the people? When you start off and in your first couple weeks, you should make it a point to meet as many of your team as possible. And we're talking lunches, dinners, happy hour, get to know who they are, what are their hobbies, what do they do, what teams do they cover, what customers do they cover. Really, really get to know your team, because that's who you're going to be interacting with for the next couple years, several years, decades, even if you stay at this company long enough. And they will help you in your job and also in your career. So we're thinking long term here. We're thinking promotions. We're thinking later, if even if you decide to leave the company, the tech world and the sales engineering world is a very, very small world. You would be amazed how small of a world it is. Give you a good example. Even within Cisco, Cisco's a humongously large company. The reputation that you gain, for better or for worse, follows you throughout the world. So the first couple of years I was stationed in Southern California, Arizona, southwestern US, did a pretty good job, I think. And then when I moved out to Asia, the big thing that got me out to Asia was my reputation in the US that I gained from the customers in the US. So yeah, it follows you around, and you gotta know the people. So your first couple weeks, like, fill up all the lunches, all the dinners, all the happy hours, all the after hours work stuff with meeting people on the same team. Now, if you have a good manager, a good leader, they will be setting up a lot of these things for you. Hey, a welcome dinner. Let's welcome Humphrey to the team. Let's welcome Bob to the team. A welcome lunch. Who's your extended team that you'll be covering? Let's get them in for lunches. So your your manager should be doing some of that, but really the responsibility falls upon you, knowing the people, knowing who you'll be covering. And you should pay particular attention or focus this knowing the people with your account manager, your AE, account executive that you are tied to, because you're going to be helping him and her. You're going to be tied to the hip. You're basically married. You're work partners. So you're going to be spending probably more time with your account manager than your wife or your husband. So knowing the people, very important. Second, process. How does your company do things? How does your company do the HR? How does it do the 401k? How does it do Salesforce? So every company is different in how they do things, and you've got to learn this. And it's very important to learn this early because, one, you have less workload in the first month or so. So you kind of have a, I don't want to call it a pass, but you're new, so they're not throwing too much stuff at you just yet. Now, some companies, they just throw you at the deep end of the pool, you're screwed, right? But most companies, generally, the first month or two is quiet. And this is the time you should take to learn the process. Who are the HR people? Talk to HR people. Go through the systems. Go through the Salesforce. Go through, set up all your health insurance and all that crap. Take care of all the easy stuff first, because later on you're going to be drowning and you won't have time to really keep up on that. Now, another thing about process, also set up your Google Calendar or your Outlook calendar, whatever deadlines or whatever things that you do per month, like depositing things or paying bills or whatever, set that all up in your Google Calendar so that you don't have to remember and expend brain power. This is what I do for a lot of my, or actually all of my utilities, whether it be the cell phone bill, the water bill, the electric bill, the rent. All of that is in Google Calendar, and I try to automate that as much as possible. So here in Bangkok, we've got Kasikorn Bank, the green bank, and within the app, you can schedule all the payments so that once it's on autopilot, you just forget about it, never miss a payment again, and you're good, right? Save your brain power for other stuff. So lastly, the product. Save this for last or deprioritize it. Still have to learn it. So what I would do when I started at Cisco and Cisco Meraki is at night, and this is on my own time, I would devote 30 minutes to 1 hour at night learning the products. What are the different specs? What does this, where does this fit? That was a big thing of learning the product is, yeah, you can concentrate on the speeds and feeds. How many ports does it have? What's the bandwidth? Is it non-blocking, et cetera, et cetera. But knowing where the product fits in a customer's network, also knowing the competition. So if I'm going to put in a 48 port gigabit switch or recommend a 48 port gigabit switch, what does Juniper have? What does HP have? What does Aruba have? What does et cetera, right? And what are the advantages and disadvantages of your product versus the other ones? Knowing how to demo your products. This was especially huge at Cisco Meraki because everything is a demo, right? So 15 to 30 minutes out of that 1 hour about every night, I would demo, right? I'd practice my demoing. And so when you start off with a company as a sales engineer, you know very little or maybe zero about the product. Hopefully you know some, but let's say you know zero. And a lot of people start off with zero knowledge, and that's completely fine. If you devote 30 minutes or an hour every night, what's going to happen is after a couple months, you will be one of the top people in knowing that product and being able to demo that product. And so I see this happening a lot of times is people feel very shy or they don't want to demo in the first couple weeks because I don't know the product. What if they ask a question I don't know about? That's completely fine, right? If you could ask a question, you have a pass. Hey, I'm new. I just started here, but I'll look it up. Cool, right? Done. But as you devote time every day, and this has to be consistent every freaking day, you gotta do this. And you'll notice after a couple months, you will be the top dog in knowing your product, and you'll be able to give a demo whenever. Couple tips for you in doing this. Study other people's demos. So when you talk to people, right, the first P, people first, you talk to different engineers, and you're going to find out very quickly who's the people to talk to. Like who are the ones that demo the best. And then, hey, do you have a YouTube channel? Do you have any of your demos saved? Can I shadow you? So when you meet with your customers or when you do your WebEx or your Zoom or whatever, right, depending on your company, can I hop on those calls and observe and see how you do things? Can I record some of these things? And you will find that your coworkers are very willing to help you with that because it saves them time in the future. They can see that you are self-motivated, you're trying to learn things, and that's going to make their jobs a lot easier in the future. All right. So this has been my strategy for starting a new sales engineer jobs. In summary, number one, the top mistake that most people do is concentrating on the product and ignoring the people and the process. And the top things, 3 things you should learn in their priority is people. Learn the people, get to meet the people, know what they do, build rapport, make friends, have fun. Product, product last. Process. How does your company do things like HR, sales, deals? How do you book deals? How do you schedule? How do you plan them out? How do you plan out meeting new customers? So the process, kind of the boring stuff, but you need it. And then lastly, the product. So people, process, product. If you have any questions, put them in the comments, like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you in a future video.